I'm Julia Davis, a film major who stumbled into the business world with no experience in 2006. I was able to fail enough to learn how to run a 7-figure business and have provided consulting services to over 200 individually owned companies. Through this podcast, I hope to provide some perspective on the growth and grit it takes to accomplish big goals and share some hard lessons I've had to learn along the way. Today's guest is someone who knows exactly what it takes to get a business truly firing on all cylinders. Blake Winters is an expert in the Entrepreneurial Operating System, also known as EOS, which is a proven framework that helps businesses and owners gain clarity, traction, control, and he works directly with leadership teams to cut through chaos, align vision, build healthier, more profitable companies. So if you've ever felt like your business is running you instead of the other way around, you're going to want to lean into this episode. Blake, thanks so much and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
So can you first tell us a little bit about what an EOS system is and how you got started in this industry?
Totally. Well, first off, glad to be here. This is quite the amazing setup that we have going on. So what is EOS? It's a question that everyone seems to start with. What is EOS is sometimes the way that I've heard it said. It's EOS, and what it stands for is Entrepreneurial Operating System. And it's a framework, a set of simple, practical tools designed for entrepreneurial organizations and their leadership teams to bring structure and get more of the right stuff done every single week. So I say I help companies get better at 3 things. Call those 3 things vision, traction, and healthy. Where vision's getting everyone on the same page with where you're going and how you plan to get there. Traction is instilling the discipline and accountability throughout your organization, whether it's 6 people, 60 people, or 600 people. That way, no matter where you look at any level, you see people actually executing on that vision. And healthy, that's really just becoming a more cohesive, functional, open and honest, fun-loving team. Because in reality, most of the time, most teams don't actually operate as teams. They just operate as a bunch of individuals. So that's EOS. And how I got involved with this was I grew up in an EOS household. And even before that, I grew up in an entrepreneurial household where my dad, entrepreneur, visionary, true to his DNA, had many businesses throughout my life. And being exposed to that, I got exposed to the positives and negatives that come with being an entrepreneur. But it was always something that was super attractive to me, leading me to start many little businesses while I was growing up, whether it was pet sitting, a clothing company, or even just tutoring people on SAT prep, whatever it was, just being scrappy to make things work on my own terms. Fast forward, I go to school and I sort of scrap all of that and decide I want to be an engineer. Go through the schooling of engineering, decide I want to go be a consultant. So I started at one of the big 4 firms and I worked there for a couple of years. And after a couple of years, it was like, all right, I got to get back to my entrepreneurial roots. I got to get back to a type of organization that I grew up around and always wanted to be a part of. So at that point, I joined a 30-person consulting firm. And in a 30-person consulting firm, you wear many hats and you all have a role as a business owner. It was there that we actually implemented EOS. And I got to see firsthand all the impacts and successes that it created, which was a full circle moment for me, as my father, Mark, actually was an EOS implementer, co-author of the book Rocket Fuel with Gino Wickman. So I've been around these concepts for like 10 plus years. And then I really got to see it all come full circle there. And after a couple of years, it was like, that's what I want to do. I want to make the leap, become an entrepreneur myself, and start coaching teams on what we were coached on, and been doing it ever since. It was a long answer.
That's, really good and informative. I think that people don't realize how simple you can make running an organization. And I think a lot of people overcomplicate it or are just guessing their way through it, especially if they're young and they just started a business and they have no practical training on how to do it. There's a lot of guesswork that goes into play. When you walk into a business for the first time, what's usually out of those 3 things, vision, then the next one is traction, and then healthy, right? Which one of those do you feel like is the biggest thing lacking when you go in first?
That's a good question. And every business is a little bit different. Where all of them are struggling is in the traction component. There's depths and layers to how much you want to put into a vision. Most companies have some idea of where they want to get. With EOS, we actually lay that out very cleanly with a 10-year target, a 3-year picture, all the way down to a 1-year plan in 90-day quarterly rocks, which is diving a little bit deep for this. But no matter what level of a vision you have for the organization or what level of health you are, every single business that I come across struggles with the accountability piece. And whether they struggle with that at the very top level with the leaders, or they struggle with it all the way from the leaders down through everyone else. It's getting people to do the right things, because in an entrepreneurial space, effort does not equal execution. You could be busting your tail, working 80 hours a week, doing things. You're incredibly busy. You're working hard. But if you're not doing the right things, then you're not getting the results that you want. So it's the accountability piece, ensuring that people are doing the right things and getting the results that we're all at.
And that's the plan that you put into place.
That's
with
part
them
of the
is
plan
like,
that
hey,
we put into place.
what are you actually doing in that 80 hours? And is it moving the needle?
Yeah. So it's
Right.
figuring out what really needs to get done, understanding that we have constraints. If we have 6 people that are part of an organization, but we don't have 60, people worth of man hours to get things done.
Yeah.
So we can put down on a whiteboard, and it's actually something that I do with my clients. It's like, what's everything that needs to get done?
Yeah.
Let's take a step back and look at that. That's a whole lot of stuff. Who thinks we can get that done in 90 days?
Right.
Typically, maybe the CEO or the visionary of the organization's like, I think we can get it done. It's like, let me step in here and help you out. No, we can't, and we shouldn't try. So let's pick out what we actually need to get done, not lose sight of the other things to keep us focused on what's truly important.
Have you ever been a part of a business where you've walked in and you've been like, nothing is going to work here?
Yeah. And so in my sales and marketing effort, because I'm offering a service as well, and I'm qualifying a lead, to use a traditional sales term.
Mm-hmm.
If they come in and tell me that they run the most amazing business and everything's going perfect, even if I can quickly kind of look under the hood and know that's not the case, then whatever I teach them and going through this process isn't going to help.
So if they're overly confident.
So there's a bit
like
of
not
this,
a student, essentially.
Yeah. And there's a bit of this where a lot of the teams that I work with and the teams that are successful with this system, they're in pain. Whether it's money's falling out of the back end, they have debt piling up, they can't retain their talent. To use the 80-hour week example, they're burning out. They know that there's a better way to get things done, and they're just simply making ends meet. And they come to me and kind of have to check the ego aside and say, we want help. And once you get to the point where you're accepting help, open to help, then we can get a lot of things done. But if you come in there and you run the most, maybe it's true. Maybe you do run the most amazing business ever. Then keep doing what you're doing. Don't let me try to interject here and try to steer you in the wrong direction. Keep doing what you're doing and continue to run an amazing business. You don't need my help.
Right. What do you see as, like, when you go into a business for the first time and you're developing, like, what are the major roadblocks that you hit? Like, what's the first one? You're like, I have to get this thing done first before we can continue on. Besides the accountability piece, which everyone has to be accountable for sure. You're looking for that. But when you go into a business and you're like, okay, practically speaking, this is my first order of business.
Yeah. So literally the very first thing. So we have the first full day is called a focus day.
Yeah.
Because we need to get things refocused. And the biggest exercise of that day, maybe one of the biggest exercises that we do throughout the entire EOS implementation process, is defining who is on the leadership team. And before we decide who's on the leadership team, we need to ask ourselves, what does the leadership team need to look like? What's the structure for the organization? So literally, we start with a blank slate. I work on a whiteboard, so there's actually no technology involved in any of my sessions. We go old school with this one, which helps when there's a lot of issues that come with technology. So we also avoid all of that. Starting with a blank slate, what is the simplest, you used the word simple earlier, simplest and best structure to get us to the next level? Everyone in that room, typically the 3 to 7 most important leaders of the organization at that point, have a role. So it's asking them to disconnect from that, forget the past way of doing things, check out their ego, and let's start with the blank slate. What are the major functions of this organization that are going to get us to the next level? And then once we do that, we fill those seats. At that point, we have our leadership team defined. And there is not one person on that leadership team that dictates the way that everything is done. It's not a democracy, so it's not a majority roles type thing, but we have inputs from everyone, because a lot of times what happens is there's a founder or a set of co-founders, and they just call all the shots. So that next level of leaders in the organization, they're just getting bulldozed all the time. So it's telling them, please be open and honest, open to one another's perspectives, seeking to hear and try to understand things, and be honest, meaning that if you have a thought about something, say it. Get it out on the table. Let's talk about it. I'm not saying that whatever you think is right is necessarily going to be chosen, but let's have that discussion. Let's challenge beliefs. Let's try to beat this thing up and ultimately spit out a better result. And we all walk out of here as a united front. So it's getting that leadership team defined, knowing that they're all on the same page. They can hold each other accountable, and then accountability flows down. And once you get accountability down, it flows back up.
Yep. What do you do when it comes to vision and you establish that in one of your meetings? How do you teach the leadership team to communicate that to the rest of the people?
Absolutely. So that's a good question. So we have the EOS model, and there's 6 key components. And within each of those 6 key components, there's 2 tools or disciplines that we use to strengthen that key component. The very first one is the vision component. The first discipline is the 8 questions, which we call the VTO, which is literally a 2-page document that we use to crystallize the vision for the organization. So as part of our initial sessions, we actually build out what that document looks like. The second key component, or second tool or discipline within the vision component, is shared by all. We can craft an amazing vision. If we don't cascade that vision, then it just dies on a piece of paper, lives on a hard drive. It sounds good, but it's actually not going to do anything. So we recommend a quarterly meeting, quarterly pulse. We call it our 90-day world, where you actually have a state of the company. You share the vision for the organization, talk about the previous quarter, center everyone on some of the more softer aspects of the vision, like core values and core focus, talk about the priorities for the next quarter, and make sure that everyone understands the vision. They see the plan, and the real kicker is they want to be a part of it. If we share the vision with you and you're not excited about where we're going, that's fine. Go find an organization where you are excited about.
So it's a big weed out, essentially.
It should be.
It could be, right?
It should
I mean,
be.
not every time, but if you share the vision and you're like, this is where we're going, this is what we're doing. And that 90 days is kind of like a process of, are people on the train or off the train,
Right,
based on the vision?
We want everyone going in the same direction.
Yeah, totally.
And that was when I was my past company that implemented EOS, those were some of the best meetings that we had. And I was left so excited because throughout the 90 days, your head's down executing. You're just doing work. Great work, but you're doing work. And it's a moment to just take a deep breath, come together as a team, and remind ourselves, why are we doing this? Sometimes you're pulling late nights. You got a tough project, whatever's going on, right? It's to recenter yourselves, come back together and be like, this is where we're going. This is why we're all here. And we're really excited about it. And if you're not excited about it, like I said, go find an organization where you all are excited.
Yeah. Can you share a story with us, maybe of a company, you don't have to use the real names, but of a company that you saw come in at one level, what the problem was and how you fixed it, and then where they ended up, like a success story?
Yeah. So I've got one client in particular, and they've been implementing EOS before me for a number of years, I think like 3 or 4 years. And they were using a lot of the tools, but they weren't using the tools very effectively. So self-implementing EOS is really, really hard, because typically someone will sit down with that VTO or 2-page document and they'll fill it out in a couple of hours, not taking multiple days worth of time to really think through each of those questions. So we sat down and essentially realized we had to start from scratch, and we did that. And now here we are 6 months later. They have a clear vision for the organization. They've turned over quite a few of their people who they either found were not right people or right seats. We can get into that later, but not right people for the organizations, not in the correct roles, or didn't really fit with the vision. They didn't want to be a part of the vision. So it's solving those people issues is where you're going to see some of the biggest impact, because throughout all of the key components, they're people issues that are relevant. And now today, here they are. They finally are starting to hit their goals every single quarter, where when they were doing this on their own before, they would set goals every quarter and come in way short. In the first quarter that I worked with them, they came in way short. And they finally turned the corner on that. And they're saying it's finally because we have the right people doing the right things, and we're not spending time trying to manage people that shouldn't be a part of this organization. They're on track to achieve their 1-year goals, their 3-year picture, 10-year target is all finally looking like it's in sight. And when they were doing this prior, they would share those things out and everyone basically roll their eyes, because things need to be realistic. So for where are we going to be in 10 years for an organization, just to use an example, what if an organization says, we're going to be $1 billion company? They mow lawns in DFW. Is a landscaping company in DFW going to be $1 billion company? No, it's not going to be $1 billion company. So everyone hears that and thinks it's unrealistic. But the targets that they were setting were realistic, just the way that the company was operating at the time, everyone didn't take it as such. So now they're sharing these big goals, and everyone's like, we can get there.
Yeah.
And they're on their way to doing that.
Yeah, because the belief has to follow the vision,
The
right?
belief has to follow the vision. It needs to be, when we're talking about the 10-year target, it needs to be something that like makes you a little nervous, gives you a little bit of butterflies in your stomach. Like, how are we really going to get there? And what's great is you have 10 years to figure that out. That's a pretty long time. But you need to be able to see a little bit of light. If it's impossible, that's going to be a demotivating goal.
Yep.
It needs to be possible. We don't need to figure out how we're going to get there today. We've got 10 years to do that. We know if we do the right thing every single day, every single 90 days, because we take it in the 90-day chunks, that we're going to be able to get there over time.
Yeah. What if a company is really small, right? And they're just starting out and they can't necessarily afford the EOS implementer currently, right? They're just a tiny little startup.
Sure.
What's something that they could do that would get them on the right track?
Yeah, so they can call me and I will give them a copy of Traction.
Okay.
The book Traction by Gino Wickman is my gift to all entrepreneurs.
Okay.
And if you're thinking about starting a company, reach out to me and I'll give you a book. And if you don't have a way to get a hold of me, it's like $15. So
Right.
I think anyone should be able to put $15 into something. Find me, I'll give it to you for free. But yeah, it's an investment when it comes to implementing EOS and hiring someone like me to do it. But the result of that investment is you're going to get the results you want a lot quicker. And I tell clients, my goal is that you get a 10 times return on your investment in me. And data shows that 10 times is probably on the conservative side of what those results actually end up being. But EOS as a system is really designed for when a company is, I say out of the startup stage, they are still a young company, but they understand what market they're in, what they're selling, right? They're not trying to figure out who they are. It's not just a sheet of paper in one person. It's at this point typically where there's at least 5 people. 10 is sort of really the turning point where it's like, all right, we need a structure in place, 10 opinions, 10 people on payroll. There's a lot of complexity. Complexity grows exponentially. And when you reach that 10 people point, it's like, all right, we really need a structure in place. I think 5 is that number. But if you're 1 or 2 people, read Traction, start to embed some of this stuff. That way, when you do add people, you've got a head start, but full-blown implementation probably doesn't make sense at that point.
Okay. What's a belief that you see small businesses have, or even business owners have, that they got to let go of? They're like, it's not relevant.
Oh, this is my favorite one. I was talking with a business owner yesterday about this. My business is different. My business is different. Oh, Blake, EOS is so rigid. My business is different. You know what? It is different. You also know what? EOS is designed and customizable for any of these businesses. Mm-hmm. It's a structure that we fit your business to. Simple as that. But they all say, oh, that's not going to work for me because my business is different this way. There's been about 30,000 organizations that have gone through EOS implementation at this point. All 30,000 were different. And it worked for most of that 30,000. I won't sit here and say that every single one of those 30,000 had success with it. Maybe they weren't really committed to it. Heck, I've even had clients that the system didn't work perfectly for. They go their separate ways, and that's all right. But the overwhelming majority of that 30,000 have had success. And EOS Worldwide actually did a study that over the past 7 years, because one of the things our clients track is year-over-year revenue, the average year-over-year revenue growth for a company implementing EOS with a professional EOS implementer was 33%. 33% year-over-year revenue growth. You look at that for $1 million per year revenue company, that investment in me, it's an investment that everyone would be willing to make at that point.
Right.
So.
And if I'm listening to this and I'm overwhelmed as a business owner and running in every direction, and I just don't know what to do, what's a piece of advice you could give them today if they're listening to this? Like, hey, try this first. Besides getting the book and reading it, what could they do today to just get themselves a little bit more organized?
Ask yourself, honestly, are you making everyone's life harder or easier? Because a lot of times a visionary, a founder of an organization, they are natural complicators. That's what makes them great. Not everyone in the organization needs to be a natural complicator. People want things to be simple.
Yeah.
What are we really doing that's important? What's adding noise and overcomplicating things? And I recommend that person finds a counterpart, what we call the integrator, that can actually help them turn away some of their crazy thoughts, figure out what's important, and help them execute. Am I trying to do everything? What am I good at? What do I love to do? Lean into those and find the pieces to fill in all of the gaps. But just get out of this notion of making things more complicated. Being busy for the sake of being busy is moving things forward. Simplify, simplify, simplify. I say less is more to my clients probably 5 times every day, to the point where They know what's to be said. And when it's a time where things need to be simplified, less is more. Let's just strip everything down to its barest essentials. What's absolutely necessary, get really good at those things. And then as you need to, layer in other things, but just simplify, simplify, simplify.
Is there a tool that they could use that maybe is accessible to everybody that you've noticed really helps?
Yeah. So the VTO.
What is that?
The VTO is the 2-page document that outlines the vision for the organization.
Okay.
There's a vision page and a traction page. And the traction page would be a good place to start for that. There's 3 questions on the traction page. It's your 1-year plan. It is your quarterly rocks, which is essentially your 90-day plan. And it's your issues list. Tactical things to go out and achieve. So ask yourself, what are the 3 to 7 things that we really need to achieve this year? That would make for a great year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What are the 3 to 7 things that we need to get done over the next 90 days? And then the issues list is what are our roadblocks? Not necessarily all bad issues.
Right.
It can be good opportunities, things that we need to have identified to either be solving through or not losing sight of. That way at a future point, maybe a future quarter, or maybe in 3 years from now, it's the time that we take on that challenge. Because as we have these issues identified, as we have good ideas identified, if we don't write it down somewhere, we're going to forget about it. So it's a place to capture those, solve it today, solve it in 90 days, solve it in 3 years, whenever we've got it captured there, until maybe it falls off the list because it's no longer an issue. So that document, filling that out is going to get every business owner to say, all right, if these are the things that we think we need to get done in the next 365 or 90 days, everything else that doesn't help us progress towards those goals, let's not worry about right now.
Yeah.
And that'll clean out their plate pretty quickly.
That's great advice. So what if you're a business owner and you feel like you're just running around like a chicken with their head cut off, trying to solve all these problems and do everything? How can you figure out what you should be doing and what you should not be doing?
Okay, so there's a tool called Delegate and Elevate, which is an exercise I do with all my leadership teams. And it's really, really eye-opening at the visionary level what the results are. And I recommend everyone in the organization does it. But essentially, you take every single thing that you do in a week, list it down, whether it takes 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 4 hours, every single thing that you do in a week that takes time, put it on a list. And then we sort that into one of 4 buckets, where the upper left quadrant of this Delegate and Elevate tool is what you love to do and are great at. The upper right quadrant are things that you like to do and are good at. And then the bottom half, lower left, is things that you don't like but are good at. And then the lower right is things that you don't like and are not good at. So everything that you do sorts into one of those quadrants. Pretty quickly, you see that maybe you filled up quite a bit on those bottom 2 quadrants. Again, that's things that you don't like but have become good at, and things that you don't like and are not good at. And you would be surprised how many people do things that they don't like and are not good at. And it blows my mind. Why are you doing those things? Stop doing those things. And then the things that you don't like and are good at, you've gotten good because you've had to do it so much, but you don't like it. That's going to lead to burnout. So it's finally seeing visually, where am I spending most of my time? Obviously, we want you working in the upper half of that document, as much in the upper left quadrant as we can, what you love to do and are great at. That's what energizes you. That's your unique ability. And then sorting through and saying, all right, what should I delegate? I'm working 90 hours a week and I'm comfortable with working 60. We have 30 hours of stuff we need to get off of your plate.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start with the bottom 2 quadrants. How can we get those off of your plate? Is there someone in the organization that understands that task that we can hand it off to? And maybe they're not only good at the task, they like it too. It's a natural handoff. Now we have an ability to talk through these things. Can we automate it? Use AI, whatever other tools to automate it, reduce it from 3 hours to maybe 3 minutes. Can we outsource it? What can we do to get it off of your plate to free you up to do those things that you like and love and are good and great at? Because that's where you're going to make the biggest impact. That's where you're going to feel energized about your work. And it's going to help you get out from the chaos of trying to do all 80 of these things, when in reality, half of them or more are things that you don't need to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. And if people are at a stage where they're like, man, this guy is speaking my language, I got to figure out how to get in contact with him, how do they find you?
So they can reach me at blake.winters@eosworldwide.com. I'm also Blake Winters on LinkedIn. You can find me there. I make videos, so if people are interested in learning more, I deep dive into some of these tools. But if you're serious about wanting to do EOS, my recommendation would be reach out, and then we can schedule what I call the 90-minute meeting, which is a 90-minute free session. I like giving free things to entrepreneurs. One of my core values is help first. So I'll give you a book and I'll give you a free session where we sit down. I tell you a little bit more about myself and what EOS is. And then I want to learn about your business. And I want to figure out what you're facing right now, where you've been, where you are, sort of start to uncover and think through some things, and then walk you through what EOS is at a high level. And out of that meeting, we make a decision. You decide whether EOS is the right system for you, whether you're committed to following this process for 18 to 24 months, because it's really not an opportunity to dabble. It's not a seminar. It's something that you've got to commit to over a long term to see those results, and then decide whether you see value in the investment of having someone come in and teach you hands-on and walk you through the implementation process, or you want to handle it on your own. And I empower every organization to at least try self-implementation. You're going to get some results. And if you're ready to take it to the full-blown scale and get all the results and ultimately get what you want from your business, hire an implementer. I'm happy to come in and help you get all those results that you want.
That's amazing. Thanks so much. I really appreciate your time today. And
of course.
Thanks for answering all the questions. And I think this is going to help a lot of people.
I sure hope so. That's my goal in this, and pleasure talking with you as well. And looking forward to see what happens.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.